think if you or anyone floats through life not really having any meaning behind anything that they do, or having a lack of purpose, they're not necessarily going to find that happiness. I think that relates back to seeing something that someone has on Instagram and going, oh, they're so happy with that, that'll make me happy. But then, so then they go chase that, and then maybe they get that and they realize that they're not happy, but they had no understanding of what their purpose behind getting that was. Like, there was no significance to them and what they want. I kind of think I did that a little bit when I left school. I went and studied like a science degree because I thought my parents wanted me to, and I was, a couple of months in and I was like, why am I doing this? Like, it had no relevance and no purpose to what I wanted out of life, and so I quit. Just find enjoyment out of the little things, and I think a lot of people kind of forget that as they grow up. Like, when you're a kid, you would have been happy sitting at a table drawing on paper for endless hours. So I think people forget about the little things, like, and it could be getting up and being able to go on a walk, and I think just being able to savor that moment, and I think being present in that moment and being able to be grateful for what you've got. I did a little bit of traveling earlier this year and was over there and came home and kind of realized that I've got it pretty good where I am right now, living where I do and being able to do the things I do. So I think I just felt a lot happier when I realized that and was grateful for that. It's just one of those things that, like, if you start on a way to happiness and you're doing something that you really enjoy, but sometimes it gets a little tough. I know a lot of people will just shy away and be like, oh, well, that's not for me. And then they'll go back to being miserable until they find the next thing that's going to make them happy. Like, if they can find that, they might have found the one thing that really makes their brain tick, but because they didn't have the perseverance or didn't want to work hard or were scared of working hard or whatever it is, they kind of just throw that away and think, oh, I'll just find the next thing that makes me happy, the easy thing, but that might not make them as happy. I don't know. I literally think everything that I do in my life comes back to the people I'm with. I kind of was made fun of a little bit by my close friends in high school. Whenever we went somewhere, I always said that the journey to get there or the train ride to the city or whatever it was the best part. And they'd always give me a little bit of stick for it. They'd be like, oh, we're going to the Melbourne show this weekend, but that's not going to be exciting, is it, Maddy? Like, the train ride there is going to be the best part. But I'm a really, really big believer in the people around you help lift you higher and help make whatever you're going through, the ups or the downs, the highs or the lows, just better and filled with so much more value. And I think, going back to gratitude, the people in our lives often take it for granted, and people don't appreciate it, or they just look over it like, oh, they're always here, they're always going to be here, like, that's whatever. But I think, I don't know, I just encourage people to look back on moments and remember them, and people are always going to remember who's with them, and if it was them laughing, they'll remember how their laugh sounded and what they looked like, and that will be the thing that makes them happy. It won't necessarily be what they were doing or what was said. They'll always remember the people they're with, though. I think growth is a really big part of happiness, actually, now that I'm getting my mind ticking over. Just thinking back to when we're in school, like, we run around doing all sorts of crazy stuff, like at school and after school, and find so much joy in that. But then as we grow up, we kind of lose sight of that because people say, oh, you shouldn't be doing this, it's not cool, or girls don't do this, or boys don't do this, or whatever it is. You kind of lose sight of things. Like, go up to any 4-year-old and they'll draw you a picture and think it's a masterpiece, but you go talk to that same 4-year-old when they're 14 and they'll be like, oh, I can't draw. But back then, they wouldn't have thought twice about it. So as we grow up, all these societal pressures and whatnot change the way we think and the way we feel about things. And I think the next step after all that is growing into who you are and finding enjoyment in the things that you find enjoyment in, and being able to let go of what people think and what people say. And you might find that same 14-year-old at 24 saying, look, I'm not the best drawer in the world, but it really makes me happy, so I do it. I think that growth comes with getting older, but also comes with a bit of life experience. And when you kind of realize that, like, it doesn't really matter what anyone else thinks about your happiness, like, you need to just do what makes you happy. Kindness is so important. That always brings me back to a quote that's, be nice to everyone you meet because you don't know what they're struggling with. Like, I think it doesn't take anything from you. Like, a poor person can be kind, a rich person can be kind. It doesn't take anything to be kind to someone else, and it might make their day, it might make their week, it might make you happy, it might make them happy. But yeah, being kind is just so important. Like, it doesn't take anything from you. You don't have to really do anything. Just be a nice person. It's not that fucking hard. I think that's something that you have to gain somehow. And once you have a little bit of perspective, and it comes back to being grateful and mindful for what you have, once you can kind of have a little bit of perspective and step back and say, hey, I've got all these things that I can do. And that's not necessarily like you should be fucking lucky to be living the life you're living. Can I swear in this? Yeah, okay. I was like, are we keeping this PG? Yeah, it's not you should be really lucky to be living the life you live because there are starving children in Africa. Like, it's not about that. It should be a perspective of stepping back and saying, hey, I'm really lucky because I've got these problems, yes, but I'm in a position where I can do this, this and this to help fix them, or I have these people around me to fix them. I think sometimes we get a little bit too caught up in our own head and think, oh my God, this is the problem and this will never be solved and there's no one here helping me. And I think it's really important to have a bit of perspective and step back and say, well, okay, no, this person's in my corner, this person's in my corner. I can go do this to help fix this problem. But a lot of people kind of lack the ability to step outside and think about that. They're all just caught up in their own head, and that social media world, it's all about me, like, and comparing ourselves to each other. But you need to have a bit of perspective to be able to step back and say, well, hey, this is what's happening, this is what I can do about it. I kind of set really high expectations on myself, and whether that's because that's just how I am or because I hate letting people down and I think that other people expect certain things of me, and then that all kind of compiles into what I think is expected of me and put a lot of pressure on myself. And I think that's one of the biggest things that makes me unhappy from time to time. So it all rolls back into kind of other things we've discussed. So being grateful and being having some perspective, and really getting back to what makes you happy, and then setting your expectations from there. I think there's a bit of leeway. I think you need to give yourself credit. You can't set expectations too low, but then you can't set them too high that you don't reach them and you stress yourself out because of it, or you feel like a failure or whatever. Like, a little bit of failure is good, but there is a limit that people can tolerate. It's important to fail, to know that you can pick yourself back up and keep going, because the world just keeps turning. Like, it's not going to stop for one person. It's not going to just stop for you. Like, you need to find a way to pick yourself back up and keep going after you've failed, and failing will help you do that, and setting expectations for yourself that sometimes you don't reach will help you do that. But you have to come back to what you want and what you want to achieve and set your expectations from there. And you can't really let other people dictate what those things are, and you can't guess what other people expect from you and then set your expectations there, because it doesn't work. I know, I've stressed over it many times, and it comes down, you'll say something and then, like, if it's to my mum, she'll be like, oh, I don't expect that from you. And then you're like, oh, did I just come up with that? Was that like a figure of my imagination? Like, I've been putting so much pressure on myself because I thought this was something that other people wanted from me, but in reality it was just me thinking that that's what people want. Yeah, respect is really important. You never know what anyone else is dealing with in their life, or what anyone else has been through, or how they're feeling on any certain day. So if you can respect them, be nice to people, you find it helps you out a little bit. But also, I think people need to respect themselves. Like, I don't know, you wake up every day, and the fact that you're, not to get all philosophical here, but the fact that you're breathing and alive is kind of an amazing thing. So you need to respect that and respect what you're capable of, and go out and not live up to your potential, but live your best life and take risks and be happy and do the things you love doing. And I think if you respect yourself, you need to do the things that make you happy.